It's not like a massive difference. Oh my God, what's going on?
All right, we are live.
Should we introduce ourselves?
Yeah. So welcome everybody to Friday Teaming episode number 5, where we are learning Kotlin with TDD. It's the second part to this unknown number of parts video series. My name's Ben Nagy, and I'm joined here by Billy Thompson.
Hi. Hi, I'm Billy Thompson. You might recognize me from the previous stream. I have the stream open in one of my browser windows, which is really confusing. Here we go. Okay, cool. Let me see if I can get my code shared, my screen shared with some code on it. That would be good, wouldn't it? How does this work, Ben?
Oh, hang on a second. I can hear myself in two things.
It's literally the same thing, like 2 seconds ago.
I can hear the delay coming through the live stream. Why can't I turn this off?
Let me share my code.
We'll edit that out.
Fine, no, it's...
We need that technical difficulties. Post it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're good. Can you share the code with me link again?
Let's do it.
Hey, John. Nice of you to join us.
Hello.
So John will also be joining us today.
Hey, so let me see if this actually works.
It's downloading the client again.
So John, you weren't here last week. So to bring you up to speed,
Yeah.
we started doing the social network kata.
Mm-hmm.
Just implementing like requirement by requirement. So what we did yesterday was, sorry, not yesterday, last time, was implementing the ability to get a user's timeline messages and the ability to post to a user's timeline messages.
Yep. Okay, waiting to connect. Thanks.
Build it. What's going to happen? Will it work? Will it blend? Here we go. Okay. Do you want to give typing in the thing a go? See if that works.
Do you want to share the link?
It's in the code with me channel.
Yep, I can type thumbnail.
Gotcha.
Nice. Okay.
How do we run the tests?
So usually the host has to run them, or
let's see, we've got.
How we run them from the command line?
You probably can. Let me see if I can get this. I may have messed this up because I opened it as a thingy project first. Super slick this. Okay, let me close this and then redo it as a actual. I'm going to unshare my screen for a sec.
You mean to open as a Kotlin project?
Yeah, rather than as a Python project, which is what I'm doing at the moment. Right, okay.
Ah, that's better.
Waiting for host approval.
Oh, I can run the tests.
You are an excellent developer. Sorry, that was naff, wasn't it?
That was actually, that made me giggle. You need to approve me, Billy. You got any pop-up come up on your JetBrains? There we go.
Okay, we all good? I just managed to run the tests, so I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, how does this work, Ben? What sort of ensemble programming are we doing?
So there's three of us. So the ensemble programming style that we're doing will be, we have a driver. That will be the person who is typing on the keyboard. Then we have a navigator. That will be the person who is telling the driver what to do and what to type. And then we will have an advisor who will be observing and giving hints and high-level direction to the navigator and the driver, and potentially interrupting with suggestions. And the format which will run it is we're going to swap roles roughly every 10 minutes. So it's going to be pretty intense. But the role swapping will kind of encourage us to do little bit by bit, and it will give everybody a chance to act as each role.
Nice.
So I propose to start with either Billy or John drive. I will advise, and then either Billy or John navigate. Who wants to drive first?
I'm happy to drive first, or did you want to do it, John, as someone who's new to the project?
Yeah.
You...
Sure. Okay.
Cool.
Tell me what to do.
So
Should
we?
So the test. Let's have a look at the test first. Probably that would be the thing, because we need to also get John up to speed with what we've got so far.
Yes. Let's have a...
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
So do you want to look through the tests and maybe talk through the features that you can see there?
Yeah. Okay. First test. The most degenerative case gets an empty list when they've not posted a message. User can get their timeline. So if someone posts a message, then you can get that message, but I don't see post message saying that it's on a specific timeline. Is it the user timeline?
Yeah, I think that's what we were going for with this.
Okay.
So the general vibe is we're doing the social network kata to learn how to use Kotlin and to experiment with this ensemble programming style. And we're going to treat the social networking class as a sort of fake in-memory version of the UI. So you can see we've got lots of high-tech code in there. Should we? How do you feel about the test as someone coming new to a project? Like, what do you think these look all right? Because it's quite hard.
The first one seems very like a reasonable test for when you're starting off doing TDD on something. The second one seems very ambiguous. A user can get their timeline. It's not very specific about what it means.
Yeah.
Get multiple message from their timeline. Okay, yeah, multiple message version of the previous test makes complete sense. Users can only see messages from themselves. Yeah, that test is also very clear, but then there's the implicit meaning that the user is Alice.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that correct?
In that last one, I guess we're asserting both Alice's and Bob's timelines as well. So there it's
But how, if the test says can only see messages from themselves, whereas a test that shows that they don't see messages from somebody else.
so that line 40, 48 and 49, I guess, would be the corresponding to line 42 and 43. So if you see there, 42 will post as user Alice to their own timeline. And when Bob posts a message as well, each one, you see we're asserting that we're only seeing a single message in each of their timelines rather than both of them.
In their timeline. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that wasn't clear.
So before we like implement any of these features, are there any of these like things that as someone who's new to the code that leapt out at you that we should like fix, like we can fix easily? Because I find writing like really good tests quite hard sometimes. So I'm quite keen to get your opinion on this.
The tests themselves seem fine, but the descriptions maybe could be.
Okay, let's redo.
Less ambiguous.
Let's refactor the descriptions then.
Yeah, that sounds great. You said that one on line 18. Should we fix that one first?
Yeah. Yeah. What does it mean to say that a user can get their timeline?
So I guess in this case, it's that a user can see the messages that they've posted.
That sounds like it would be a much better description.
All the messages that they've posted.
For now, yeah.
For now, yeah.
So,
do you want to?
Since I'm the driver, should I do it?
Go for it.
User.
Yeah.
Let's see. All messages they've posted to line. Or just messages, because we're only testing one message.
Cool.
Is that better?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Looks good. Cool. Were there any others that we spotted? Was that last one was a bit vague, maybe? Maybe we can reword that. And then we can see if we can chuck in it. Is it who's timing? Are you the
I'm timing. Yeah, don't worry, I'm timing.
Nice. Cool. How can we make this a little bit clearer? Users can see messages from themselves in their timeline. Can see only users can only see messages from themselves in their timeline. So maybe maybe we need to maybe we just need to make it a little bit clearer on that line 48 and 49. Maybe we can use like a variable in there to give it a little bit of a description as to what those two expected values are. So we could say, do you want to try changing that list of on line 48 to be in a variable called
Maybe
only
Alice's messages.
Yeah, let's do that.
Alice's and Bob's messages.
Right. So there you go.
You're missing a parenthesis at the end of the list of line 48.
Oh yeah. Right. Thanks.
Oh, good spot. I was wondering why that wasn't working. Nice.
Oh, that makes it much more readable.
Yeah, I like that.
So we'll do the same thing for.
So you should also be able to use the refactoring functionality. So like introduce variable as well.
Oh, okay. Do that next time.
Nice.
So that's nice, but then I see line 42 and 43. We could probably reuse those two constructs there as well.
Yeah.
So if we bring these definitions up higher, and then we'll be able to reuse those variables on line 42 and 43.
42 and 43.
And
Oh,
where we're posting the messages. No, the message. Yeah, potentially.
What, as in Alice's message and Bob's message?
So yeah.
Cool. Like that, yeah.
I mean, or alternatively, you do like a loop.
Mm.
So for each element in the list of messages, you do post message.
I don't know. Let's try this. And I forgot to do the extract variable again. But, no.
Yeah, that's nice.
But maybe this should be Alice's expected messages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to undo that and try and use the rename thing? That might be a bit.
Oh, okay.
Time's up. Should we swap? And then maybe that's something that we can do next.
Yep.
Yeah.
Billy, would you like to drive next? And
yeah.
I'll navigate. John advises.
Oh. So, navigator, what should they do?
So I liked John's idea from before. If we rename those messages to Alice's expected messages. And Bob's expected messages as well. Yeah. That makes it much more readable, for sure. I suppose one
shouldn't, if they are On the left, we have messages. On the right-hand side, we have timeline. So
okay, yeah, no, that's a fair
we
point.
have alternate names for the same thing.
Yeah.
So okay, if we want to be super
We call
verbose
it
about this,
timeline, or we call it messages.
so maybe let's say Alice's expected timeline and Bob's expected timeline,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah. A bit more consistent.
that also allows us in future, because at the moment we're saying, you know, the timeline is a list of messages, but if we introduce a timeline type, and then these names will still make sense when we refactor this test at a future stage. Very good. So if I'm not mistaken, we are now finished implementing the first requirement. So if you could, just for John's benefit, bring up the README. Yeah, so first requirement, posting Alice can publish messages to a personal timeline, and then an implicit one there as well from our tests is, you know, we should be able to, like, to assert that that is happening from a user point of view, we should be able to view them as well. So we've said Alice should also be able to view her own messages, right? So now the next requirement we have to implement is Bob can view Alice's timeline.
Okay.
So from a test point of view,
By calling this.
well, I'm just thinking, like, we've actually already implemented this more or less, right? So because we've got a get user timeline messages function, right? Which any user can call, right? So actually what we have is, you know, anyone can get any user's timeline. So
Okay.
I would be inclined to say that we've actually already implemented this.
Ooh,
Unless we want to introduce some kind of user construct, and then some classes and some methods, but I don't know if that's necessary at this stage.
I'm keen to press on.
Yeah, okay. So following. So the next requirement then is Charlie, another user that we've introduced now, can subscribe to Alice's and Bob's timelines, and view an aggregated list of all subscriptions.
What does that mean? A list of Bob and Alice's messages together?
Yep.
Yeah. So what would this look like from Charlie's point of view? So Charlie can do a subscribe functionality, and Charlie should only see the messages that are from people that he has subscribed to. So if we have for example, another user, I see their Mallory later on, but Charlie isn't subscribed to, then messages on Mallory's timeline we don't want to see on Charlie's timeline.
Wait, are you saying that if we do get users timeline messages, that if Charlie does get users timeline messages,
So I feel like here what we need is we need some kind of subscribe functionality.
What's going to be the failing test that we start with in this
Well,
case?
let's explore this, right? So at the moment, I don't know exactly what the design should look like, but I feel like the next step should definitely
not the
be
design, but the failing test.
So that's what I'm talking about. So the failing test, I think, should be the subscribe functionality. So a user should be able to subscribe to a specific timeline.
Yeah, but don't they already have the ability to see anybody's timeline? So that will pass?
No.
Well, subscribe
mean,
subscribe functionality won't.
Yeah. So my understanding of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that say Alice posts a message and then Bob posts a message.
Yeah.
Then if Charlie is subscribed to Alice and Bob and is not trying to decrypt packets from them in an attacker sort of way, then if they've subscribed to them, they should be able to retrieve the messages from all the people that they've subscribed to.
Yeah.
So we aggregate the messages.
So a potential failing test here actually from Charlie could be get all subscription messages or something like that, right? So user can view all messages from the people that they've subscribed to would be the name of the test, I think.
A user.
And my feeling of what this should look like immediately is, let's say, so we need a subscribe function, right? Now, just for ease, I would say, create so it's like a function with that's just pure side effects, right? So you have like subscribe user, and where the first argument will be the user who is subscribing and the user who is subscribing to, right? So subscriber and subscribee. I don't know what the better way of naming it.
Subscribe, shouldn't it be subscribe to? I mean, what's the wording?
The current way that we've got it implemented, because we don't have a user construct yet, right? Which is, well, it's just a type at the moment. But the only class that we have at the moment.
In the README, in the rules, it does say subscribe to.
Yeah.
Can subscribe to.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking the function parameter here at the moment will be like, it's a function that subscribes a user to another user.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Where the first argument is who is the user who is subscribing, and the second argument is who is the user who is subscribing to, right? So here, Charlie would be subscribing to Alice.
What about, sorry, because I'm the advisor, I can butt in. A more OO approach where user Charlie has a method called subscribe to.
Yeah, we could do that too.
Throwing a spanner in the works here, but
no, that would definitely work, and I think that
it.
would probably be the next iteration. I'm just thinking there's only 1 minute left of my driving time.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, under the hood, right? Like you could also say, if you implement user subscribe to this user, will be under the hood calls this function, because you might also have some validation rules around it, right? So we have that first, and then once
they subscribe, they can get the messages from both.
Yeah. But only after they've subscribed, right? So now here, Alice and Bob would have to be posting messages to their timeline, and then when Charlie, then when we say get subscription messages,
right,
for user Charlie, right? Then Charlie is shown all of the messages that Alice and Bob have posted so far.
I'm writing this down as you're saying it, because that's I'm assuming that's your intention, is that you would like me to.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Cool.
So the time is up for my driving, but yeah, let's swap over.
Okay. So who's
So who's next? I'm driving next.
I think I'm navigating.
Yeah. Oh no, I think Billy's.
No,
Ooh,
because I was advising, so I can't be advising again.
correct. Yeah. So Billy will be advising and you'll be navigating.
Cool.
All right. Timer started.
So now we need to say that the user gets the messages, their subscription messages, and they should see both.
Yeah. Something like this.
Yep. Charlie's subscription messages.
Subscription messages. And then here what we want to say. So what's our assertion?
Assert that Charlie's subscription messages are a list of message from Alice and message from Bob.
So it would be something like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello for the first time and
Yeah.
Worth doing a little bit of extracty variable there.
yep.
Or maybe give it from measure.
I can't. It's only the host can introduce variables. So
Oh, no.
might have to ask you to do this, Billy. It's the messages that we want, right? Yeah. And I'll rename this in the meantime, right?
I haven't given it a good name.
Message 2. Yeah.
Oh, it
Famous
didn't.
album.
It didn't rename the second one for some reason. That's weird. Anyway, okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So I mean, at the moment, this is very, very, very functional. We'll probably introduce some classes later on, but I think this is, for starters, good start. So does that test fail? I would expect it to.
I can run it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So does it give a message? Yeah, unresolved reference subscribe user. So we need to. Shall we start with a subscribe user function that does nothing though? Because we're going to get another message about second method not existing.
Sorry, Ben, I'm not following you.
So something like this, user.
Looks aesthetically pleasing to me.
Yeah.
And does that. Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got the, yep, let's run the test again.
Okay,
Yep.
resolved. Get subscription messages.
Okay.
Ooh.
Cool. Now.
So it's failing because the types could not be inferred. Type inference failed. So we need to give a little hint as to what this is going to return.
Yeah.
And this is going to return
empty.
a
Oh,
list
okay.
message. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is going to complain here because
We need an empty list.
yeah. So let's return just a list of nothing. Nice. Run the tests again. So, yep, now we're getting the actual business logic failing.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Sort on insert or sort on read?
What?
So maybe let's
we
talk about we're talking about the data structure of how we want to
yeah. So do we sort into timelines in the post message, or do we sort into timelines in the get subscriptions for user?
Wait, there's no requirement to sort, is there?
But we need sort is probably the wrong word. To create the timelines.
So there is an implicit ordering here in the tests, right? Like that Charlie sees Alice's message before Bob's message. Although are we thinking too far ahead at the moment?
Yeah,
I wasn't necessarily thinking about sorting like that. I was thinking about how we sort the messages which are from the different users into an appropriate timeline. So you could do like, do we do that on insert or do we do that on read? Because we can, as users are subscribed to different things, we can start we can do some sorting, and then that way, or we could just do it all in the subscription messages for user.
Are we thinking too far ahead?
Well, it should be the next place where we put some code.
Well, I mean, isn't the next code just inserting if users subscribed, inserting the messages to the users list? I mean, subscribe user, what does it do now? It says somewhere that user is subscribed to this other user. And every time this message goes into the other user's subscription list.
So with the data structures, with the one data structure that we have at the moment, we just have a map where a dictionary of usernames or users and the list of their own messages.
So do we need another map of who is subscribed to who?
So just to answer Billy's question, my feeling would be sort or organize, let's call it, on read, just because of the data structure that we have at the moment. Yeah.
Cool.
So what's next? Some logic subscribe user, right?
Yeah. So how are we going to track who is subscribed to who?
So it's a one-to-many.
We do like a set or something of all the users of a user and the users they're subscribed to. I guess it'd be a map of sets.
Yeah. That's right. So it'd be another map, but it would be user to set. Yeah.
So something like user subscriptions, and then it's going to be a map of user to. So what's a set in Kotlin?
Probably set.
Yeah, correct. Nice. Map of Yep. And so what's next?
Okay, so now we need to do something similar to what you do in post message. No, because this is a set, it's different.
Time's up.
Okay.
Change places.
Bean cup moved down.
So
Who's driving now?
I think John's driving now and Billy is navigating and I'm advising.
Exciting. So, do you want to in that the user subscriptions for the user, get the user subscribing, use the user subscribing to access that variable and add the user subscribing to that set. It's probably like add or insert or something.
So what user subscriptions?
Yeah, square boys. So if you get those square boys after the end of it, and you can do it like online.
Oh, yeah, right. So then user subscribing.
It's very Pythonic in that way. It's quite nice.
Yeah, you can automatically use an object as an index.
And then if you do dot, see what happens if you press dot, see if you get some autocomplete type stuff. If we get anything which is like add or insert, or we could even just do equal, I suppose. Nope.
How do you add something to a set?
And Kotlin, is it?
It is a good question. I have the
Take all. Wow, there are a lot of methods associated.
It's just dot add. To add a single element
cool.
to a list or set, use the add function.
Cool. Let's do that. Let's stick a user subscribing to with the .add method. I suspect we're going to get a problem when we do this, in that it will say that there's some sort of null problem chance.
I don't see an add method.
Give it a go anyway. Let's see what happens. We might need to change that set at the top there to a mutable set.
Yeah.
On line 12.
Okay.
Go for it. Nice.
There we go.
Okay.
No, that's
Now we have add. Okay. User subscribing to.
You run the test for me.
Oh, wait. The squiggly red line. Only non-null asserted. Oh, because it might be.
Yeah, because that element might be empty, right? So you might have a user key, but then nothing as its value.
So, okay, why don't we copy the logic, which is that the pattern that we've used previously, that messages.compute. So we could do user subscriptions.compute, user subscribing. And then we can use the same like Lambda style that we've got in there to add the user to that list.
And I think if we're going to use .compute, then we're going to have to make it a mutable map again.
Right.
Oh. Nice. Oh, you need to change the, yeah. That's a little bit frustrating. I wish it just let you, I wish it did a type inference there. That would be nice.
So then, is it?
Yep. Underscore and
Same
then
as. So now what do I put here?
So this would be users existing subscriptions, shall we say, or users subscriptions, something like that.
Users subscriptions.
Oh, so if you whack in,
We need to do or empty and then add. Or
No, so
Yeah, so-
here is where you need that arrow, right? So because the
Oh.
first, so remember, so this is a lambda function, right? Where you got the first two arguments will be the, yeah, and then here we do users existing subscriptions dot add.
it'll be a dot or empty, and then you can do plus. I assume.
required mutable.
Because yeah, the inside the compute is going to we return the new value for that field. So you'd have to do users existing subscriptions dot or empty to make sure that it's not nullable. And then you can do literally the plus symbol to add them together. And then yeah, you can drop the thing, and let's see what that does. Does it?
No, it doesn't like it. It needs mutable set found set. Why?
Do you want to try we can try running the tests and see if that recompiles it, because I can actually see that we do have a mutable set and a mutable
It's true.
thing as I use. Ah, okay, invert type
Yes.
is set, so it's the inference that's unhappy.
Right.
Line 18.
We
Okay.
need to specify.
I guess
If
we
you
can just
if you
whack-
change it back to
Verify?
set of user, that might make it work like we did before.
yeah.
So on line 12, yeah. So change that from a mutable set just to just a set.
Oh,
Is
of
that
course, 'cause
we're adding to it and returning a new one now.
Yeah.
yeah.
We're
Didn't
not
think about that.
mutating it in place.
That's better.
Yeah. So it's a bit more
Runs.
functional, right? Where so the compute, my understanding is the way this works is it's not giving you the thing to modify in place, it's saying give me the new value that you expect me to put here.
Right.
Yeah. So it's we're not modifying in place. We're actually we're not modifying the set in place, we're creating a new set to insert into the
So
map.
compute returns a function that takes the existing subscriptions and returns existing subscriptions with the new one added to it.
Yeah.
Ooh. So should we have a look at using that in our exciting?
Get subscription messages for user.
Yeah, so we could use the user we've been passed in to get the messages from those two users in the messages map, and then do a little bit of merginess.
Like that?
Yeah, and
Well,
I think you might need a dot or empty in there as well. Yeah. Yeah, so you'll need to put in the square brackets first to retrieve the user, and you'll need to assign that to a variable. And then we can use those users to retrieve the messages.
So
Cool. User subscriptions, square boys, then always empty. Yeah. Cool, nice. So we've now got the users that should be in this timeline. So I wonder if we can go and pull those out of the messages and produce a list of messages from that.
Wait a minute, this is get subscriptions. This is returning a
list of messages. So we need to change this so that we use that variable we just created to go into the user the messages map and get the messages for each of those users.
Right. Okay, so
So if you were to
how do you
remove
want to do it?
return,
Do you want to iterate, or do you want to do it
yeah,
like hard code 0, 0 and user 1 for now?
so let's just do a for loop. That's probably the easiest to do, and then we can think about how we might want to refactor it after we've got the test passing.
No, I mean, even without a for loop, you can do first and second.
I would be surprised if it let you do that. It might do. I don't know that much about Kotlin.
Messages. Does it need to say or empty?
Just furiously Googling of getting some multiple entries from a map. I
Well,
was literally just
might
thinking
be
that we
empty,
would
yeah.
have an array and do it that way.
Fine.
Like keep it super simple and then we can refactor it afterwards.
So you want to do a for?
Yep. So if you create an initial value down there, like a mutable list, and then we can save the messages to that list.
So time's up.
Rotate the boards.
Who's next?
I think I'm driving.
I'm navigating. Yeah.
John's advising.
John's advising.
Cool. Right. Okay.
So yeah, what we want here is so for every user's message. Wait, hang on. So users existing subscriptions, that returns a list of or a set of users. So for every single one of those users,
yeah,
we need to append as users messages are intended return value here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably rename that then to like users subscription messages potentially. Just to
messages.
Yeah. And then so for every user in our users existing subscriptions. So we're basically looping through the set keys. So var user in. Yeah. Doesn't like that.
Oh, because it's a
not nullable value required to call an iterator method on for loop range. So you just do dot iterator at the end.
Oh,
thing?
In here.
Yeah. Okay. And this is only safe or non-null asserted calls are allowed nullable receiver of type set user. Yeah, because it could potentially be empty.
Could I or empty it?
Yeah. And then I guess if it's or empty, then the for loop just won't do anything. Yeah. Cool. And then here our user subscription messages, we want to plus equal the messages of that user. Yeah. And then or empty.
It's saying here that plus equals on a read-only list creates a new list under the hood. So it's.
Do we want to do dot add instead?
I think we need a mutable.
Because we've got, oh yeah, we need a mutable list of messages up top on line 24. Yeah. Mutable list of.
Oh no. My autocomplete betrayed me.
You can get rid of the.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. What's it complaining about here? Type mismatch, required message, found list of messages. So maybe it's not add then. It will be something like concatenate, or how do you do a concatenation in Kotlin? Kotlin
Might.
Try plus equals. That might be okay here.
Lost my plus key. There we go. Don't know how I managed to lose it. Okay, right. So
So yeah, the plus equals operator is what it suggests.
Okay.
But then
Cool.
as long as, because it's a mutable list, then it should be fine now. Yeah. So that was the only thing we needed to change.
Nice.
Okay, no, you just need to delete square brackets on line 28.
And then here, what we're doing is returning user subscription messages.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So now we should have, fingers crossed, a passing test.
Yeah.
And it's passing. Excellent. So I think refactor time. Oh, I forgot to start the timer. Sorry. So let me just take a guess. Maybe it's been four minutes. So I'll stop it when it's at 6 minutes. Sorry, at 4 minutes remaining time. So some refactoring here. My immediate feeling, and we kind of touched on this before as well, is it might be time to introduce some user objects, make it a bit more object oriented. So rather than, I mean, pure functional is nice.
But you already have a user class, no? So,
well, we use a type.
oh, it's a data
It's
class.
it's a data class here. Yeah. And it was just for the purposes of our maps. Yeah, because we started off with string and list of strings, and then we to play around with the type system of Kotlin. But is that the right next step? I don't know. What do you think, John?
I like the idea of introducing the user as an object. Now, hoping that it would result in making the code simpler or more readable.
Because
refactor the get subscription messages, which can be refactored and
yeah. So because here what we're doing is all of our messages are being kept in like a global mutable map, right? So that's like, massive list of all the messages.
Yeah, maybe we want users' messages in their own.
And so maybe the data structures that we want actually are a bit more class-based, right? So like something like we have a user class, and then that user class has a list of messages.
Yeah,
right.
And they can subscribe to.
Exactly, right. And it's a bit more like collections and sub-collections sort of thing, rather than having like a big global list of messages. Although at this point, I don't know what the I don't know if that will simplify the code.
No, but it's worth trying and see what if the result is more readable or more clunky.
Yeah. So I feel like there's going to be a fairly large refactor. But
we can go, step by step. First, have the user class. It'll still work, won't it? Or
yeah, I think it should do. As long as that class is a hashable type, then I think it should work.
Yeah.
So tell me about what I need to change.
So let's make the user an actual class, and then the user will also hold the messages that that user has posted.
Yeah.
does that make sense from in the point of view of the requirements? So like a user will have a timeline, and that timeline is a list of messages. So
yeah, they can publish messages to a personal
and they can publish messages to their own personal timeline. And then so that user object holds the messages for their own timeline. So rather than keeping all the messages in a big global mutable map, we now make them the responsibility of each user.
So each user is a what? So each user is a active record style class?
Yeah.
Got an in-memory
I
version?
mean, if you just remove the data keyword.
Yeah, if we remove the data keyword and then inside the user class we define like messages, which is a not mutable map anymore, but just a list of messages.
Yeah.
So what you want to messages?
Need to remove data.
Yeah.
So
But this is good because we haven't done this in Kotlin yet. How to create a class and constructors and all that stuff yet. So
I'm not sure I would approach this in this style if I was doing this for myself.
Yeah.
Because I want, when I'm making a data store, to be able to replace that data store at some point.
Yeah.
So like I would almost never put the store of data, which is the absolute truth for that, unless it's a data domain value in the actual object. But let's press because it means that you can never swap it out.
That's also a good point, because here at least having the like big global mutable map of messages, that means you can always just bosh that into a relational database, and then all the logic is still basically the same.
Yeah.
Whereas in the other way is there's a lot of like joins and data transfer objects that we have to create.
Yeah, let's not think of database at the moment. Let's experiment.
My time's up actually.
Hey, what am I doing now? Am I navigating?
So I think I'm driving, you're navigating, and John's advising.
I was advising now, so
yeah, it can't be that.
Oh no, it can't be that.
I'm navigating.
Yeah, and I'm driving.
Right. So okay, so we want a private var messages here.
So do we still want to carry on with this idea here?
I'd like to go a little further with it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Do we need to instantiate this when the class is created? So I'm thinking more something like this.
Oh, yeah.
So
and then it's only when the first time.
You can initialize it. I'm looking at popped up the page, the Kotlin docs, because I'm a bit.
It says property must be initialized or be abstract, and we can do a late init modifier. So yeah, I'm assuming a late init means that we can. Yeah,
it'll be bound on initialization.
Yeah.
You can also just do equals empty list or something if you wanted.
All right.
I mean, if that's what John thinks is a good idea.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we can either initialize it to an empty list or not initialize it at all, and then leave the initialization logic to the first time a user posts a message. This is the simpler approach for now.
Yeah.
Okay. What am I writing next?
I think we need a post post method.
Like this.
Yeah.
And that'll be, I'm assuming, public, right? So is public not a keyword?
We don't need public. It's public by default, seems.
Okay. So we post message, and in here we'll just have the message to be posted.
Yeah. But then suppose, but we could use the same code as on line 20 now.
Yep. How's this going to work then? We'll just copy paste it in. The problem is this mutable map is part of the social network class, right? So either,
But we're not using.
sorry,
that.
you mean the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
We don't need compute.
I assume it wouldn't actually be compute. If we if the list is immutable, then we'll have to return a new instance of the user class.
Yeah.
And if the class is mutable, then it will need to
But that's not complaining.
Nope.
Maybe it does automatically return. No. Okay, so now we need to use that the tests. I think maybe we should get rid of the function on line 20 now altogether.
we
This one?
run the tests.
Oh yeah, from the
I mean,
tests.
we don't have a,
They should be still working though, right? When
Yeah.
we're doing our refactoring, we should.
Yeah, it's failing in the same way as it was before. Because we don't have wait, why?
well, because we're changing the user class,
Yeah,
right? So like user class is no longer a data class anymore.
So is there
Oh,
a way we can do this without breaking the tests?
oh shit. So
I mean, one way of doing it potentially is keeping the user as a data class and then maybe putting this logic in a separate class.
Yeah.
So something, so it might look something like val name, is that what it was? I think. And then here, this is going to be like user, or we rename this to username.
How do you feel about that, John?
sorry, what did you do?
So all I did was the old user class that we had, right? Data class, which was just kind of a type wrapper around a string.
Oh,
I've renamed that to username, and then I've now started putting the logic into a separate user class, right? Which means now our test is still passing. It should be.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, if we run the test, they should pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
That'll be a fun project. Success music when the test pass.
So now does user need to take username as an argument rather than name?
So that depends, right? So here, my guess would be we would instantiate multiple users. So in this new paradigm, right, that we're coming up with, we would create a social network, instead of having a map of messages, it would have a list of users. or maybe a map of users where it's a username and then the value is the user, however we want to do that data structure. But then now the messages are tied to each user rather than in this global list here.
I would like to get my mental model of this straight. So what is the user class? Is it an entity? Is it a data of a domain value? Is that the right word for it? Data value object? I would call it value object normally, but I can't.
So the username looks like a value object, but the user doesn't seem to be. Can't we convert it into a indexable class?
So it doesn't need to be. I'm just trying to get my mental model straight of what this is. So it's an entity, which means that its comparison is via the ID for a check. Okay, cool. Yeah, makes sense to me. I think I'm good now.
Right.
We're doing on time, MC.
Got a minute, 50 seconds left.
Okay. So now, do we want to get rid of this function on line 24 and to make sure we're not using it?
So maybe one suggestion I might make at this point is maybe commit, because we're at a bit of a crossroads in terms of what path we want to follow, right? So do we want to now break our global data structure, right? Because we're exploring this, but we might find that we actually want to go back.
Yeah.
So I would suggest we commit and just keep this as a, because all the tests are passing and it's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Good.
Um,
can always
so
amend before we I don't have that set up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's also in German, which
that's fine. You can also learn German here.
What do you think Andong means, given the context?
Geändert, changed, modified.
Yeah, exactly.
So what am I doing here? Git commit. What's our commit message for this? The current state that we're in. So we've implemented
subscription.
Implemented subscriptions. Yeah, let's call it that for now.
Oh, do you want to just type Git-Mit BT and then I'll sort out the please say who you are. That's what it's saying. So
Git-Mit install.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not following the cursor.
Oh, weird. Let me just log in.
Do you have the other mits added? So then I kind of do git mit and then bt.
Oh yeah, totally.
bnja.
I think so. Yeah.
Bn not
it'll
found.
be
JA
sorry.
not
It'll be AK hyphen for each.
AK hyphen, AK hyphen, or hyphen AK. Let's try it the other way. So for those watching, Git-Mit is an awesome tool created by Billy, which modifies your Git commit messages to add collaborators. And it's really cool. We can post a link to her repository in the description for the video. Definitely check it out. But it looks like you haven't added John. But you know what? Just for the sake of this, let's just
top notch quality.
Top notch.
Amazing.
So how do we get out of this? There is a way of skipping commits, right? Skipping hooks.
Hyphen no verify. Just delete everything that's in the hooks directory. I don't know why it's doing this.
RMRF, was it Git?
Yeah, don't get /hooks.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
All right, let's push this. Okay. Let's swap. You driving next, John?
Yeah.
Is it me navigating or is it Billy? I think it's Billy navigating.
Yeah, I think so. I think I was advising last time, unless we wanted to like swap it over so we're not always doing it the same way. I'm sort of looking at time a little bit. We did do that last time.
Yeah, happy to change.
Cool. Do you want to give it a go? Do you want to navigate then?
Cool.
Cool.
So John, you're driving?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess if we're continuing down this path, then what we're gonna have to do is, in our social network, we're gonna have to create some kind of store to hold our users.
Sorry, where?
So inside our social network class.
Oh yeah, store
Yeah.
users. Right.
Yeah. So here we're going to have private var. You know what? Let's do this a map actually. I'm thinking. So just users, which is going to be a mutable map of username and user type. Yeah. And so I'm just trying to think. So here, the first thing is what, post message, right? So in there now, what we're going to want to change is, rather than messages.compute, so line 25, right, this function.
Yeah.
We're going to...
Do we need this function? Are we going to call each user post a message?
Well, I'm just thinking to keep the tests passing right now, right? Yeah. So in here, what we would need to do is, so if the user doesn't exist, so basically, change, I think you can just delete all of the logic inside that function, and we're going to have to do curly braces. So all the way up to equals.
We have a question in the chat, by the way, from Tom Oram. You may have heard him before. Probably a bit of suspicious character. Could probably just ignore that and move on. No, he said that one thing I noticed is that every test creates an instance of a social network. Perhaps that can be pulled out so that it's run before each test. So
that definitely sounds like a great refactoring to do, but let's do that after this. So here now our post message, right? The way we're going to have to do it is basically check if that user exists in our users. And the way we want to do that is, so first, let's do it this way, right? So users square bracket username. Would it?
Oh, this one should be called username.
Yeah, would it be all right if we rename that to username? Yeah. So users username dot post message.
Yeah.
Message, right? Yeah, here we go. Now that if that user doesn't exist, we're gonna have to create it.
Oh, right. That's right. So
yeah.
Do we need an if? Or...
So yeah, let's do it just the basic way. So check if the username exists in that users list. Is it just if username in users? Does that work in Kotlin?
I don't know.
There's a dot contains, I think. I'm not sure. Oh, it's not looking unhappy, is it? So maybe it does.
Let's get rid of
Specify
that just for a
return
second.
type.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if username in users, I like doing it the opposite way. So if username not in users, then we want to create that user and then we can post the message, right?
That's probably an exclamation mark somewhere.
Yeah, exclamation mark in. Yeah, and then what's the suggestion? There's probably a refactoring suggestion here. Ah, exclamation point in. That's interesting. I've not seen that sense of syntax before.
Not in. Okay. Username not in. Then users username equals.
And then here is it just like new user? Is that a thing?
Is there a new keyword?
Is there a new keyword? Is it user brackets with a name?
Yeah.
Name, give it username as a name.
We don't have username dot name, or we'll have to change this to username now. Let's change it to username type.
Cool.
Yep.
A guilty pleasure of mine is to put types for like, well, everything. So the autocomplete works better.
And then here we want to post the message to, yeah. That's fine.
We're complaining that it might be empty.
So I wonder if just the static analyzer not picking up the previous if.
Should we try running the test?
So here we're going to get a test failure.
Yeah, it fails.
But it's failing because of the safe non-null asserted calls are allowed on a nullable.
Safe. How do you do that?
But I mean, we've checked it ourselves up above. So what is the compiler not happy about here?
Is there a dot or default?
No, the problem is that username isn't created for existing user either.
So like that's deliberately why we're doing the check above on line 26, 27, 28 here, right? Which I feel like the static analyzer should pick that up, so shouldn't be complaining. Unless it's not contextual.
I suspect it's, yeah.
What does it mean, username not in users? Because users isn't, because it's a map of username. Do you think it should know?
Yeah,
which is fine.
I think it's probably because the return type of the whatever is behind the square bracket function is like nullable. So it could theoretically return null. So it's just looking at the types probably.
Do we need to specify the return type?
You mean, right, so like the username.
Oh, wait a minute, there's no return type, sorry.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, Bellino, that makes sense. So like if the key exists but the value doesn't. Yeah. How would what would be the best way of solving that in Kotlin?
So I can think of a few ways. So
wait, if we did this instead, if not users, username. Well, no, I think.
Yeah.
Still a problem though.
It's because it's a second call. So it's calling a function when you put in the square boys. So
Oh, because the post message is. No, I don't get it.
So if you were to, so let's write this out longhand.
Wait a minute, you're allowed to do that?
You are allowed to do that, yeah. Try.
I mean, the longhand version of this would just be if username not in users and username is null. That would be the guard, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so you could pull out the user and assign it to a variable and then overwrite. You could do compute and do it that way.
Let's try
You
running
could.
the test and see if it works like this.
Nope.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean
does.
now,
I
no,
mean,
it doesn't. So it
on the last test.
yeah, it works, but the test is failing.
Oh, the tests are failing. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Sorry.
I mean, it seems fine to me for now, but then I wonder what the side effect, because it shouldn't be any, to be honest, with our logic. What that question mark being there?
I'm a bit suspicious of it.
Me too. My time is up.
Who is
I'm advising. And
my navigating or driving?
Who was navigating? Me.
yeah.
So then I can only be advisor or driver next.
So I was navigating. So I will go with advisor, and you can be driver, and Billy navigator.
Billy navigate. Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so awesome. Just like a little logistical thing. Are we gonna do a retro at the end of this? Because we normally do.
Yeah.
And what time are we gonna split for that?
So I think we got one last mob time going. And then we're gonna do a little retro.
Cool.
So can we have a look at why that test is failing?
Yep.
What does it say? Wait, am I driving or you navigating?
You're navigating.
You're navigating, Billy, and I'm driving.
We need like let's see. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got a failing test, session social network kit.
A user can get messages of all the users they have subscribed to failed.
Okay.
The only one? Yeah.
I guess I am surprised that that's the only test that failed, to be honest.
Hang on. I didn't run all of them. Sorry. Hit the wrong one. Yeah, they should all most of them should be failing.
You'll fail because they're not matching.
Yeah.
The index isn't working.
So can we I'm kind of keen to keep these tests passing. And like that's generally what I try and do when I'm doing refactoring most of the time.
Yeah.
So what would be really cool, and I think would keep the test passing, would be if we take our messages and just slip that back in the top of the post message and just still assign to that messages variable on line, say 26, something like that. I wasn't thinking about adding in a property, just on the next line, just until we've got the entity-based version working, just to keep assigning to the messages.
Sure. So here we've got messages dot compute.
Yeah, you could have kept the code that was
yeah.
Messages. It was something dot compute or something like that. It was messages dot compute. And then you passed in the username to the compute, and then it was a lambda. Oh, I stopped following you for some reason.
Sorry, I'm just looking on the Git diff. There we go.
Nice. Thank God,
Compute
yeah.
username. There we go.
Oh, yes, of course. Cool. And if you run the test, they'll still go.
Oh, wait. So we're posting the messages to both places.
The old great old test seems a little bit slow when I'm not running it through the IDE.
Oh,
So just run it
how
through the
weird.
IDE.
Yeah, weird. Okay.
Yep. So tests pass.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we need to do to this post message inside the user in order to make it store the messages? So it looks like we're already doing the storing. So
Yep.
I guess we now have 2 complete lists of messages. So maybe we need to just change the user timeline messages to instead of referring to the interesting. Like, oh, I tell you what, let's keep the test passing. So let's make a duplicate of this function with us just like a silly number at the end or whatever, it doesn't matter. Just so it's different, and then basically the same interface and the same other bit at the end. Yeah, and then instead of doing equals message, let's go into our user and get the yeah, slow one, get the messages that they have. Interesting.
So here what we want to do is say val the messages or
Yeah,
user messages.
Yeah,
I guess because we're getting it for a specific user. Yeah. So here we go. Users dot I would say get messages and then implement this as a getter.
Are we going to have it an aggregate? Because I think messages is a map of username. Oh, sorry, is user and I'm confused as to what the user.
Sorry. So it's users
map of username to
username dot get messages. This is what I would suggest doing.
Cool.
And then it says return.
So that needs to be username in the function signature.
Cool.
Yeah, which it is. And we've got
and
this
the variable name as well.
whole negating thing. So what would you say username?
So I think the variable is called user still. So I think that'll probably the key that is on line 41. Oh yeah, that's cool. Nice.
With this question mark, how does this work in Kotlin? So can I just do like a or empty at the end of that kind of thing?
You can't, because question mark means it might be empty. So now it's
so in that instance, would it not?
This is already like or empty.
Right. Oh, is that what that does? Or null if not. Yeah. So if it's null, so it's
should we add in a return so that the compiler can get a little bit further and we can get a better message? Yeah, cool. So if
shouldn't it return an empty list if there are no if there's no
but I'm not sure what the question mark means. Is it a null coalesce operator? So it would be a null and then
if it's null then it'll
return a null,
nothing.
Right?
Yeah, return null,
which is not what we want, I'm guessing.
No.
But I mean, let's see if the tests pass. Oh no, that won't work either.
Put a question mark and then put .or empty on the end. See what happens. I would feel like that should work.
Yeah, that works. Yeah. So basically this shorthand syntax is like just jump to the or empty, I guess, at the end. I don't know. That's kind of how I
guess so. It's probably like a
so if it's null, it'll be an empty list. Okay.
Cool, test still passing. Do we want to try using our shiny, exciting, fantastic, world-shatteringly awesome new function that's going to revolutionize the social media industry?
Do it.
tests.
We are
Nice.
still passing.
Amazing. Do we want to do another? Or
So
delete that?
So at this point, we are doing what exactly? So that's the functionality that we've just implemented, right? But I think the rest of the tests, oh no, yeah, that's fine. The it's this get subscription messages for user, which we haven't implemented in this new way yet.
Cool. So do we want to start implementing that in the same style? This would be my approach. So we can take the method signature, duplicate it with put like a one or an old or a new or whatever in there. And
so that sounds like a great idea. We've got a minute and 20 seconds left. Is that, would you like to continue going down then in a minute, or?
I am quite happy with where we've got to. I would be happy to start thinking about like if we do a retro or something in a retro, I think.
Maybe what we could do in a minute is what the good Tom Oram suggested on the stream is try and create an instance of social network out of the class. So like a before each type of thing. Can we do that in a minute?
Yeah, let's give it a go.
So how does that work is it at before each, that thing? No, before all?
So there is, you create a, you create a function and then you annotate it with at before each.
So fun setup, social network, or just, I don't know, in it. Let's do this. And then here what we've got, private social network.
Yeah.
Private val.
That looks good. Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Before test each.
It's before each. What the import is, I have no idea. Maybe this will know.
It's well, maybe this was a tall order for a minute because our time is up now.
Hey.
All right.
I have just realized that I have no idea where our retro board is for this. Do you know where it is?
We kept it in the README. So here I would do, so this was last week's one, which was what, on the 21 minus 17, 14th July. So I'll probably just do it like this.
Nice.
And now we've got the 21st of July. So liked, oops. Didn't like. Do you want to do the same format? Do you want to change it?
Think, John?
How would you like to retro this?
I'm happy to keep it the same.
Okay. So let's take a minute then. Feel free to type here, using the code with me window, what we like, didn't like, and what we want to discuss.
Cool. Oh, that's why I can't look.
Okay. Feel free to add stuff at the bottom, but let's go from the top. So liked, keeping the test passing, X2.
Yeah. I like the idea. Think it's important because you get into a big mess when you make big changes and don't keep the test passing.
Billy, did you want to say something about this?
Yeah, so like one of the things that I find like really helped. I also just really think it's the right way to do it. Like, even if it means duplicating code, even if it means like having it repeating twice, keeping it like passing just means that you don't ever go down too far down that route of, ooh, what if I did this? What if I did this? What if I did this? And then you're like, oh my God, everything's fucked.
Yeah,
definitely done before.
Yeah, and not only that, you don't know what's gone wrong.
Yeah.
It's going to take you a whole day to figure it out. Yeah.
Yep. No, I fully agree. That's a good strat, and I'd definitely continue to use that going forward. Liked Tom's questions.
I guess there's only one. I was a little bit sad we didn't quite get to resolve it, but like, I was wondering if maybe we should make it a thing where the person who's advising keeps an eye on the chat in the feed for questions.
I haven't even been seeing the feed, but I like that somebody asked a question.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So should we put here like remember for next time?
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I'll add that as to the overall suggestions over here. Remember for next time streaming. I'll put here. Advisor, keep an eye on stream chat. Okay. Next up, so I put here commit before going down an unknown path. I think, yeah, it's definitely important, and we should, I think, even as part of the stream, like commit more often than we usually do, right? So like commit after we get passing test, so that making reversions or all of that stuff makes it easier, and it also will help the TCR thing, which we'll discuss later on. But definitely doing that before we just embarked upon this journey helped, as you could see, because I was able to just bring up the git diff and copy paste an old piece of code that we that we deleted. So moving on to didn't like. So yeah, a couple of technical issues which I didn't experience last time, being able to hear myself in the stream. So in the YouTube window, I did mute it there, but it was still coming through. Not sure why. I'll have to look at that next time.
From the Zoom, maybe.
I think it was coming from the browser tab, but I couldn't close the browser tab because I needed it open to continue the stream. So, yeah.
I did the same thing. I opened it up and I was like, wait, why can't I hear Ben twice?
Yeah. And the issue is it's about 20-30 seconds delayed, which is fine because of encoding stuff like that, but it is quite annoying. So any suggestions on how to fix that going forward would be super helpful. Poor start of stream setup. Is this the same?
Same stuff, really. Yeah, I just felt like I could have had the project open and ready to go rather than opening it in PyCharm and all that faffing around.
It's fine.
Is it though?
I mean, we can always edit it, right? We can always just get Dan to edit it down to like the highlights.
Yeah.
Right, so discussion points, TCR. So for those that don't know what that is, that's test commit revert. I think we discussed this last time. Billy, was this you?
Yeah, this is me re-upping the idea of doing it for a stream. I am really interested to see how people find like being forced to make really, really small changes.
Yeah.
I think that would be fun.
So I actually think we should definitely do that next time, for sure, because I think it would get quite amusing and gamify it. I know we said it last week, but for real, plan.
So how
plan
do you
on
do
doing it.
if it
So basically, it's what you do, right, is instead of running the tests in the IDE, right, you do like Gradle test, and then if it passes, right, then it's fine. Otherwise, you do git revert or reset, like hard reset back to your previous is it git reset hard head, something like that.
Git clean, I think, would probably be the easiest way to do it. But yes, yeah.
So you run that command instead, right? And so what either happens is the tests pass or all of your changes get wiped in the code. And if you, right? So the point is, and what that forces you to do eventually, like you learn your lesson quite quickly, you basically make like or 1 or 2 line code changes and then run that.
So we're missing a bit off the end.
Oh yeah,
which
we are
is
missing a bit.
And commit.
So it's this. It's
part of test passing, actually, right?
Yeah. So it's this. So you do the git commit, and then what do you typically do? Do you give it a message or
whip or whatever?
Yeah, something like this, right? So you run the tests, and if that passes, then you commit it. Right. So test pass, then you commit. If it doesn't pass, then you reset and you wipe all your changes. So that's what test commit revert means, right? So TCR, T is test, commit, R revert. Cool. Next one, big changes strategy. Who wrote this?
Me. It's about like how you make big changes, like changing something from a data structure to an object and doing an OO version is a big change, and there has to be some strategy around it. We've tried to use a strategy that Billy suggested. I think it's a good one for now, but I think there are other strategies that might be possible. It's just worth I have to think about it and try. I just like off the top of my head, it seems to be possible to apply different strategies, and this is one of them that we used. But it's worth thinking about the strategy you use to make big changes, because you want to keep the test passing. Yeah, how you make big changes and in TDD, basically. So
I would argue that you don't like always just make lots of small changes.
But you have a big change in mind, right? You have a goal of replacing.
Yeah, but you still do it. You still do it stepwise, right? Like how we were doing it. We still do it sort of smaller stepwise. You don't try, or you try to do it that way as much as possible.
Yeah,
and doing stuff like TCR definitely helps get you there, I think.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to discuss actually here was how to handle, like, so we had a lot of discussion there, right? Of like how should we do this, and what should the next step be? But then I felt like the timer was kind of a bit pushing me to be like, oh, well, we've only got 3 minutes left, so let's write something. So I don't know if either of you two had an idea of like maybe what we do when we enter like a big discussion like that is actually pause the timer for a bit, and then it's not, then we don't do like a proper like driver navigator advisor thing, but just like as if we were whiteboarding or something. And then when we agree a sort of path forward, then we go, right, okay, start the timer and then continue. How do you feel about that?
I would really like to try it. It's something that I've experienced before when I've been doing other ensemble programming. So I've never found a way that quite fits me. I've always kind of just pushed on, but I think that was probably the wrong thing to do. So I'd like to give that a go.
Cool. And final one here, what class types?
So
Yes.
I did. So I actually limit myself when I'm doing object orientation. So I kind of want to see what other people do in this regard. So when I'm doing programming most of the time, I limit myself to a really small number of classes. So I have my value objects, I have my entities. Very occasionally I have aggregates. I have application services, which are the transition from the external part of my system with external dependencies and stuff into the actual part of the system, which has all the domain logic. I guess it's both actually part of the system. I have services inside it, which don't contain any state, but might combine multiple collaborators together to do things. And I have repositories, which are where I put state. And then beyond that, I don't really use any other kind of classes. Does anyone else? I find it very freeing because I find it easier to communicate about. Does anyone else do this, or is this just a Billy is weird thing?
No, I don't think it's weird. I mean, it's basically just employing design patterns, really, right? And but from building blocks rather than from specific building blocks that you've got rather than we'll use this specific pattern. So I think it's the same concept, just a bit more flexible in the long term. So yeah, 100% would agree to do that. And this is why I think kind of leading back to my previous point about it'd be nice to have those discussions and not be forced by the timer to do something. Because those are the really valuable conversations, I think. When you brought it up, and I felt a bit bad for almost dismissing it because I was like, well, let's just see and get it writing. Sorry, get the code typed up. But yeah, no, I don't think it's a weird Billy thing. I think it's probably weird if you don't do it, or if you don't do it, then you definitely should think in those terms.
It's good enough for David Bowie. It's good enough for me.
Yeah.
These constraint cards.
Cool. Well, thank you both for joining. Had fun. Next week, then let's try test commit revert. I think that should be great fun. Yeah. Have a great rest of the day, and thanks everybody else who joined or watched.
Yeah. See you around.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye.